representing Prairie Rivers, which is a 501c3 or nonprofit out of Ames. We typically in the history have represented 6 counties in the area, of which Marshall is one. We're doing substantial projects, one of which is we manage the Heritage Byway for the Lincoln Highway across the state of Iowa. This Lincoln Highway crosses exactly through Marshall County, crossing LeGrand, Shady Oaks, Marshalltown. It comes clear past Lamoille and also through State Center. It passes directly past our courthouse, and you've probably seen the distinctive L signs designating that byway. We're requesting that an interpretive panel be placed on the courthouse grounds. This particular panel I would love to show you some pictures, but I was unable to log into Zoom today. So, but I think maybe you've seen some. There's a similar one over by Montour. There's some over by the Nyland Corners in Colo. There's one directly beside the Tama-Lincoln Highway Bridge. There's some in Nevada. There's many more. We would like to place one of these particular ones in the verbiage on it will be specifically about Marshall County and its connection to and through the Lincoln Highway. It's an important thing, and since the courthouse sits directly on the Lincoln Highway itself, the original Lincoln Highway itself, we would like to be able to place this interpretive panel on the courthouse lawn. This panel is about 2 feet tall by 3 feet wide. It's on a powder-coated base. It is multicolored, and the verbiage will be developed and shared with you as we provide that. It's also, that particular part is also then put on a 2x4 by 5.5 inch concrete pad, and we would hope to be able to install that sometime mid-year 2021 if everything works out well. This is still being designed and developed, so there's some input that we might be able to share or be able to assist in having you folks to provide to us if it's possible. We all understand that the county budget is tight with obviously the disasters we've experienced in the last few years. However, if a contribution could be made, that would be wonderful. Individual contributions would also be welcome. So, and also just as an informational piece, we believe that the Lincoln Highway will very soon be named as a National Historic Byway, of which similar type of routes, Route 66, I'm sure you're familiar with that one. We anticipate there'll be substantial more tourism beginning through that particular process, and there may be additional, hopefully more people touring through town. So I think it might be good for us to be able to have something like this in place. Thanks for considering this.
Thank you, Reed. Do we have any questions here for Reed this morning?
Mr. Chairman, if my memory serves me correct, we had a gal approximately a year ago give us a presentation on this very thing, and we approved placement of that interpretive panel on the courthouse grounds once we got to the point where we could have the grounds redone after the retrofitting of the courthouse.
My question, sorry, Lucas here with Buildings and Grounds. Do you know the power requirements for that, Reed?
There are none.
Oh,
it is. There are no power requirements. It is not lit.
Reed, what was the intent? Where was it wanted to be placed? Do we need to put it along the Main Street here on downtown Marshalltown?
That is our request, to have it placed along Main Street. Exactly where, we're not particular. Probably it'd be nice if it could be, probably in a corner or somewhere where it's not intrusive in lawn care and all that kind of stuff. So, that we're open to that, but we would like to have it along Main Street.
Okay.
Would it be beneficial to have it close to that marker? Because we do have a Lincoln Highway marker. Yes.
I agree completely. Yes, I did. I agree.
As far as the Bills and Grounds standpoint, I don't see a problem with it. I mean, I think it's
Okay, great.
a neat opportunity to have more people visit downtown, so.
Yes, okay. And Reed, what is the cost on this?
I believe, I don't have the exact details, but I believe each of these panels typically costs about in the 1,500 range.
Reed, this is Jan Gammon.
Yes,
I'm the Lincoln Highway Heritage Byway Coordinator, and I believe I'm the person you referred to talking to you about a year ago about this project. And each of the panels are $2,200. We do have a grant from the Union Pacific Communities Giving Program and Humanities Iowa to put $1,200 towards each panel. And so that we're looking for $1,000 to finish each panel.
All right. Can we
Mr.
make it-
Chairman, I would motion that we approve the request for the placement of the panel on the courthouse grounds, subject to this group working with our buildings and grounds individual, Lucas Badke, in a place that would be beneficial to all. As far as a financial contribution, at this time where we're at in the budget, I'd like to hold off on that, but I sure would like to approve this request for the placement and the installation of the interpretive panel.
Mr. Chairman, I would second that as Mr. Thompson has requested.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve this panel here that, for the Heritage Byway program. Is there any other discussion? All right, roll call vote.
Solosik,
Yes,
Thompson,
Yes,
Patton,
Yes.
very good. Motion passes.
thank you.
Thank you, Reed. Number 11, Marshall County continue to share engineer with Jasper County. Discussion and possible action to approve the continuation of sharing Marshall County engineer Paul Geilenfeld with Jasper County.
I'll start off here. The chair of the supervisors from Jasper County, Brandon Telsman, called me last week. And Brandon's a good guy. He works hard and he's sharp. And was talking about this. And he knew full well that it's taken Paul more time than we had and he had thought it would take. Time there, not just sitting up here signing papers for him, as it has been with other counties whom we've done this type of arrangement. And I'm not sure where they're at. They may be looking for a different supervisor. I'm not absolutely positive on that, but that's kind of the way it sounded with some health problems on there. Looking at the 28E that we have with Jasper County, it says that it began, we started this October 15th, and it says ending when the Jasper County engineer returns from leave. Okay, that doesn't look like that's going to happen. I am visiting with Brandon. I said, you know, Brandon, somewhere we got to put an end to this because Paul's got a full-time job. And it's about a full-time job going down there and working. And I said, I just can't tell you, sitting here on the phone as one supervisor, I said, I think we need all three supervisors and Paul to talk about this. And so that's what we're up to here with Paul's input. Hope we can come up with this. The 28E also allows us to amend this. Both parties just have to say, yeah, we'll amend it. And so we may need to do that. But I wanted to say that to get this kind of started off, because I want you to know how it started, how it came to me and so on. So I don't know, Paul, what's your thoughts on being able to handle both of these things here?
It's been a learning experience. I guess the biggest thing I've learned is that I will never entertain the option of being the engineer at two counties at the same time. I mean, as a permanent condition, it's something there's counties where it works, but all of our adjacent counties are more populous, there's more things going on. And at least with my inability to multitask, I cannot think that I will ever want to have a permanent situation where I'm engineer at two counties. The responsibilities as far as taking care of the things down at Jasper is, like Bill said, a little bit more than what I expected it was going to have to be, but there's certain things that are ongoing down there. There's open construction projects still being built. There were some loose ends on those projects. So the things that have to be made, the project engineers who has to make the decisions. And so I'm functioning as the project engineer when I'm the county engineer. Those things are going to start coming to a close. So that amount of work will reduce. But at the same time, we're getting into budget season. So I'm concerned, am I doing the Jasper County, secondary roads budget? And thanks to there being 99 counties, there's 99 different ways that we do budgets. And their way is different than the way that we use up here. It's something I can get through. It's going to require some longer hours and make sure that we have something that we can live with for another fiscal year down there. There isn't really there's no problems with the way this agreement is working and what's being done as the agreement's written is working. So it's just a matter of the end date and whether or not we have, some reasonable time that we want to, have this come to an end, because they are going to go out, if they do go out and advertise for a position and get somebody hired, that isn't something you just do in 2 weeks. There's a good chance. Well, I'm not an HR guy, but we all the department heads are kind of HR guys too. It takes 2 months. It's going to take, I think 2 months is a reasonable,
Especially with the holidays in there. It's,
holidays. And if you hire someone who is currently employed, they're going to have to ease out of their position where they're at now. So I don't know that to me, it's wishful thinking to think that we could have this even completed in a month. And it would be, I don't think it would be right of us to say, we're just going to let you guys go about your business. You know what I mean? As far as, having somebody else come in and help them between me and the next engineer right now would be even more hassle for the department and the people that work down there and the board.
Now, you've been going down there 2-3 times a week.
Between 2 and 3 usually. From what I can just try to remember what I have for hours, it's between 10 and 20 hours a week that I've spent working on Jasper County items. And then, like say even the construction that's still going on caused me to work over Thanksgiving weekend. I was there on Friday and Saturday after Thanksgiving. I was in Jasper County on a construction site because we had concrete being poured and work being done. I had to have inspectors there. They're just the way things go,
Paul, don't they have their own internal staff that could have been there for those inspectors? Was that something that you had to do?
It was kind of a strange situation, but it was the inspector that was going to be on the site was ill and became more ill overnight. So when I was out there in the morning for the project, the pour, there was no inspector. And so I had to call around and get some help from Manats, and we were able to, get the right testing done for the work. But it was a situation of an employee that was ill, and anyway, we just had to kind of roll with it.
Is the concrete pours all done now?
Yes.
Because the weather's gonna change, you're gonna be done one way or the other.
Yes. The trick right now is they're doing some minimal dirt work on the bridge project down there, and if we get any rain at all in December, you're done moving dirt.
Yeah.
So it's move dirt in December. Oh,
Well, it was our intention to be a good neighbor, to be to Jasper County, but this turned out to be a bigger thing than what I think any of us anticipated.
and it's just the only thing I have to base my experiences on is my experience with Hardin County. And there wasn't near as much of the things that are going on in the background. There wasn't the hours required to be on in county with Hardin as there is with Jasper.
I would sure like us to continue our commitment to helping a fellow county as far as Paul being available to sign any paperwork that needed to be signed, and to alleviate as much work on Paul as possible. Maybe they could run those papers back and forth. That would still allow them to get any documents signed by a licensed engineer that they would need. But if they're at this situation, we need to encourage them to replace their engineer as soon as possible. I don't think they can possibly expect us to have Paul do their budget. That's way above and beyond any expectation that should be needed here.
I agree, Dave. And do we need to be thinking about an ending date here on this thing today, or what are your thoughts?
I feel like we'll be more able to place a date on it in the next couple of weeks, probably 2 weeks from today. We have another meeting.
Yes.
We should be able to know more, I would think. Right?
I don't know if we need to put an ending date on it. I certainly think that there needs to be some light at the end of the tunnel, but I think we definitely need to communicate that they need to go forth with the hiring process to replace their engineer. But at the same time, I think we need to still offer Paul's services as a signatory for contracts and things that require a licensed engineer. But I don't think we should have him do any of the rest of the items.
The budget work, there is an employee down there that is working on picking up the budget, but she's never done the budget herself. And it's just a matter of trying to pick up the parts on people that have retired who did budget work before, and what part the engineer did. So I mean, I think it's reasonable to think I can help one of the current employees down there get through the budget process.
Well, either that or they could have their retired employees come back and give them a hand also.
That's not likely to happen.
Okay.
On just what I know about that probably isn't for a public meeting.
I understand.
Then at this point then, we probably don't have enough information really to try to say, where's the line gonna be drawn here for the end. We need to wait and see
Yeah,
a little bit.
I just wanted to make sure you guys were aware with, where I'm at and what it's really taken, because I know that on my end, there's things that I need to do in Marshall County that I am behind on, that is, partially because of this, partially because of derecho and COVID and everything else. But there's things that I'm, slower getting at home because I've been having to put time down south.
Well, Bill, I'd sure appreciate it if you could speak with their supervisor again and give them our thoughts that this needs to come to a resolution as soon as possible.
Yeah, I will, yeah. I've worked with Brandon, with other areas, and I have found him to be a good guy, good thinker, reasonable. So we'll try and work this out.
The other thing I did want to add is that when, there was a situation with a bunch of projects that were not closed out, not audited through the DOT. And I went to the board down there and said, we need to bring in some outside help to get this done. And they were very cooperative in hiring a consultant to help come in and get these projects closed. Because without that help, I would have been spending twice the amount of time down there, trying to get these projects closed. And they did hire on some additional help.
That's good. Good to know that. We don't have a motion, so we don't really have anything to table. We can just move on.
So we'll visit about this in 2 weeks then.
And Paul's going to come back here in a couple of weeks and share his thoughts at that time. He'll have a better idea.
Okay. Well, we'll leave it at this point. All right. Paul, you're on again. Secondary road equipment purchase. Discussion and possible action to approve the purchase of 2 truck equipment packages from Henderson Products Incorporated for $116,142 each to be paid from the fiscal year 2022 equipment budget. This equipment will outfit our recently ordered Volvo tandem truck chassis, which will be arriving in September of 2021.
Correct. We've got two chassis on order that are, the build out is next fall. And this is just to get for the dump body and the snow plow package and the sander and all the equipment that goes on that truck, to have it placed in line at Henderson to get our chassis in there and get them built so that we can have them in service a year from now. They'll be in service, for winter.
Okay. It's interesting you have to go out that far.
I'm not used to seeing a build out that far out on Volvo. And I don't know if some of that is because of pandemic, if they've had issues with getting, but I think there's a good chance.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve the purchase of 2 truck equipment packages from Henderson Products Incorporated for $116,142 each to be paid from FY 2022 equipment budget. The total for both packages is $232,284.
Mr. Chairman, I will second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to purchase these 2 truck equipment packages from Henderson Products for $232,284. Is there any other discussion? Roll call vote.
Solosik,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Patton.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Gentlemen, we're going to take a 2-minute reprieve here, and I'll be right back. All right?
Okay, that sounds fine. Really looks like the weather's getting more delightful out there.
Yeah.
It's getting thicker, isn't it?
It is.
It's good. It should be decent warm today, though.
Very good. We're on to number 13, radio project update. Discussion and possible action to sign a contract with Raycom for the radio project. Discussion on Marshall County's funding for the radio project. I guess I'll start this off if I could. We received a letter from Christine, who was with Ehlers and Cooney, and I don't know if it's necessary to read this letter, but basically what it says is it paves the way for us to do this whole project with Raycom, as opposed to carving out part of the tower project to outside sources, or to have bid to outside sources. So I guess I'd like to say that probably leaves us a couple of choices then. We can still consider the original proposal, the contract from Raycom, which basically required $450,000 down payment to start, if I remember correctly.
And another 450
And another
very
450
shortly thereafter.
Yes. Or if we still decide to carve out what we had originally talked about, I think that puts us down to a little under 300,000, and the same situation. They would have to be two payments within a few weeks, if I remember right. So with that, I open up any discussion then.
I think without question, we've all decided that this is going to be done. At this point, I think where we're up to is our funding of it. With us settling with the insurance company this last 10 days, we had some funds that we had set aside to do some projects there so that we could continue to go for. I asked Nan yesterday if she could get a hold of Christy down with Ehlers and Cooney to see if we could shift some funds around, seeing as how we've had some of our funding freed up because of the insurance settlement. If we could shift those funds around and be able to pay for this project by doing an amendment to our budget and taking it off of different line items. Nan, were you able to get an answer from her?
Yes, and I do want to clarify, it's a very interesting, the individual at Ehlers and Cooney that reviewed our contract, her name is Christine, and the person that did our original information with the hearings and everything for our loan, which was a line of credit because we didn't want to get it all up front, for the code costs, her name is Kristen, so without an E. So I spoke with Kristen yesterday, and she said that original, what we did originally for the code cannot be used for the funding of the radio project for these towers, because it was designated for the code. She said, though, for a project like this, we had a conversation about our needs for this project. I said it's around 2.7 for these towers and everything. I also shared that we're a bit short on all the construction here. And she said, because of the nature of both of these items, we had a couple options for financing. We could get what she called an ECP loan, and we could have a hearing for that and go through the process, or we could do the essential purpose bond. She said both of those processes are very similar on what we have to do, holding the hearing, etc. But she said the ECP loan, there's slightly less cost because there's one less publication in the newspaper. She said the rules of how you go through the steps is just slightly different. The one thing, when I hear loan and I hear bond, I know there's different rates. So probably, the next step is, what are the costs of those two things? What kind of rate can we get? And that's probably the next step of our investigation. And I did not, I talked to her late afternoon yesterday, and I thought I would have liked to have gotten a hold of Jarrett and just talked to him a little bit prior to this meeting, but didn't get that opportunity and wanted to share the information I've got with you all and see what our next step is.
It is a little frustrating. We've had at least 3 thought patterns that we were going to use money that we have. And the legal aspects of those are saying that we can't do that. And so we're back down at borrowing money for those situations. And we would have been borrowing money from ourselves. We would have been paying it back. Which now did Christine fully understand that we're going to be borrowing the money from ourselves and paying it back? And then she still said we couldn't do it?
Well,
There's no-
Bill, no, this was a little different. This was the 2.99 million we took out for operating capital in a line of credit
Yeah.
to
The line-
do our project. And once we settled with the insurance company, we aren't necessarily going to need it for that. And I was hoping we could shift that over to a different area. We're not talking about borrowing from the health fund here.
She just said it would just require another hearing updated for the purpose of she said, because we've never gotten the loan. We never did proceed just with the way the project here was going. We didn't need the funds, so we didn't have to there was actually a couple more steps we had to do through the board before we finalized that line of credit loan. So we've, had a little bit of cost on that, but we kind of stopped because we didn't need the funds yet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And never completed that process. And now we know a lot more now that the mediation is behind us.
So the loan that you're talking about would be a line of credit loan again?
It'd be a loan. It could be a line of credit. Again, I would think we'd want to do something like that because we don't want to borrow the whole 2.7 million up front and pay interest on it because we don't have to make payments till later. So again, it's a project, it's a construction project. I think you'd want a similar type of mechanism for that. And we could probably get, if we went the loan option, more banks that could come up with funding over the course of a span of time versus giving us 2.7 right up front.
I know Marshalltown was able to get money for about 0.7%.
Yeah, 0.7%.
Is there an opportunity for us to maybe do the same thing?
And I think that was a bond.
That was a bond.
I'm
Okay.
pretty sure that was a bond. So, and I just don't know how those rates work. And, to me, a loan is probably going to be a little bit higher, but all this stuff has changed so much here in recent months with COVID that I'm not really up on what those things are doing.
Is that something we could have Jared do some research?
Jared could do a little research, and we could continue working with Kristen Cooper. And then this Jason that also reviewed our initial request about the borrowing from our health fund. He's kind of the 911 systems guru there and understands those projects. So he's probably one that would also maybe assist us. She said she's more construction based, so that's why she got our original request. And so they kind of specialize in different areas there at Ehlers, and we can sure gather more information and see what steps. And to me, the big thing, for all of us is, what's it going to cost us? What's the rate?
Yeah.
I'd like us to, I'm sorry. I'd like us to go forward with the, pursue our options here to keep the term as short as we can, to be able to acquire the money when we need it and not in one, large sum. That being said, we also have to keep in mind that we did make a commitment to assist these other townships in the purchasing of their radios. So if that's going to be a part of it, we need to also keep that information in the back of our minds, that we may need to have some additional funding for those entities. I know we've asked Chief Funtz and his group several times for how many radios. We've had some members of the township departments tell us that they didn't need to borrow any money or that they were going to buy radios somewhere else. But we need to get those answers on the amount of radios or additional assistance that we're going to need to provide to the township fire departments as far as assisting them in borrowing the money also.
Yeah, I want to be sure people understand when you say that we're going to assist them, that means we're going to help them find a bond or a loan somewhere.
Yes, a funding mechanism only. We are not going to be borrowing the radios for anybody else or any of their equipment. That's the responsibility of the individual departments. But we did make a commitment to assisting them if necessary so that they could have the ability to spread it out over several budget years so that they could still be able to operate. To my knowledge, we have not received any of those answers from either John Thomas, the chief of police of State Center, nor Brad Funtz.
You did have some people come and talk to you, various townships or departments, and said they're not going to borrow any money. They got enough money saved up to do it.
I've had 3 different townships or departments tell me that they're either going to be purchasing radios from somebody other than Raycom, or B, they do not need the funding. But that still leaves, possibly 8 to 10 departments out there that may need some assistance, and that was a commitment we made.
Is it safe to say, though, that the radios, there won't be a need for the radios for at least 6 months and maybe 9 months or more?
Maybe even longer.
Or even longer. I don't know why that needs to be tied to what we're doing here with the towers and the construction. And I think each department was maybe going to have a different need. Maybe some can pay off in 5 years and others maybe 8 to 10. So to try to put this all together in one project, I think is impossible or almost impossible. That's my thought anyway.
Well, if we're going down the road and we're going to be borrowing money, we need to know how much we're going to need totally. So yeah, it really is relevant.
Well, I guess we're in the position, I guess we're going to have to agree to disagree at this point then on that part. Right now, I'm just wanting to do something, get this tower system
well,
up
there's
and
no
running.
question. We all want to get it rocking and rolling.
Well, let's not throw something in there that might slow this down a little bit.
So you'd like me to kind of work with the attorneys at Ehlers and then obviously with Jarrett on prices and that type of thing? I don't know if that's more through them or more through him, but I will try to gather and pull information and see what our choices are.
I like the idea of a line of credit. Even if they cost a little more, they may cost less because we do a little bit at a time.
We're gonna have to see what that cost of the money is over that time frame.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
I agree with Bill. I believe the line of credit would be the most prudent decision for us to make for the taxpayers.
It depends what the rate difference is.
Surely we can
And the
have something.
ability for us to keep it with the local banks within Marshall County.
I would like that.
Yeah. Shop local, the job you save could be your own.
Absolutely, yes. We can surely have that put together by our next meeting. Is that fair to say?
I think so.
Okay.
I don't see why not. That's
All right.
2 weeks.
Okay. Do we need to have any more discussion on the contract that we're going to choose at this point? We've got 2 in front of us here. Have you thought about that anymore with the new information that we've just gotten from Christine?
Kristen. Oh yeah, Christine.
Christine.
Too. We've got both. Oh, no.
Christine.
No, I'm confused. Sorry.
Our names kind of like directions.
I do better with numbers.
Okay.
I do better with
Okay.
numbers. Yeah,
Yeah.
directions and names, it's harder for me.
No,
Well,
no reason for discussion or no activity on discussion of that side then?
I will need to know which contract I'm trying to fund. So if we're trying to fund the initial one with the work going through Raycom, that was the 2.7. Because if we do the other option where it's split out, that's going to be a lot more because of the additional costs associated with that. So am I just going to go with the original contract?
I would say at this point, yeah.
Okay, okay.
I would agree.
Okay, good.
After the attorney reversed their position as far as, there being a potential conflict of interest, I think we need to go back to the original contract.
Very good. I agree.
It'll make the process much faster. And quite honestly, we've had enough delays on this thing. I'd like to get it going as rapidly as possible.
That's great. Good to hear.
I'd love to have this off our plates by the time we start our budget.
That would be very helpful, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if there's,
You have enough, Mr. Chairman? I don't know that we need a motion.
I don't think we do either.
I don't think, as long, you three have given me direction on which one to go with, and that's what I need is numbers.
Okay.
See, I'm back to that part I'm good with. I can do numbers.
Okay.
Just need to know which number I'm going for.
Steve, I would like you to be in contact with Brad and get numbers and who needs these radios and how many. You can do that on your, on another task.
You bet.
I can speak to that, if Chairman Slosik, if you have a minute.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I know I was asked by a few to not participate or speak today, but I guess since the request was made, the radio funding, since it's been pushed back to the departments, that information has been shared multiple times with the fire and EMS chiefs in the county, as well as the mayors at a couple of recent 911 commission meetings. So they are well aware that if they need funding, they need to reach out to you all. Once the radios were removed from the overall larger project, that no longer became my responsibility. That's on each department and community. So it's we originally had the total numbers for the big project, the initial request, but now that's on each community to fund. They're going to secure their own funding, financing, however they see fit. So I'm not the one any longer to speak with 12 mayors and 16 townships worth of trustees to coordinate that. They have been instructed if they need funding to reach out to you all.
Is there any timing on when they would reach out? Because obviously we would need to know this kind of now.
Well, I've asked them throughout the process, I've been telling them ASAP. Of course, not knowing exactly when the contract would be signed. That's one reason for the recent push, because as you all know, the budgeting process is coming up very shortly. So the townships and city councils need to know if they need to secure funding for the fiscal year 22 budget or the 23 budget, depending on the timing of when the contract is memorialized. So yeah, I guess that's as much as I can say. As I've told them, as soon as possible, if they need funding, to reach out. I can try that again, knowing that hopefully we'll have something finalized here in 2 weeks. I can send another message out saying they need to get in touch with you again as soon as possible.
Good.
That would be great. Yeah, just ping them. It seems like maybe that final reminder will maybe, let them know. It's interesting. We've not heard from anybody with a funding need.
Not a peep.
And I only had one.
We go 2 more weeks, and I would say we go 2 more weeks, and if we hadn't heard anything, we just let it fall by the wayside, and everybody can be on their own.
Okay, sounds great.
I'll share that with them.
Okay. Thank you, Brad. Any other discussion at this point?
I think once you move ahead with this tower project, they will figure out ways to finance radios. That a reasonable and prudent entity of each city and department will get it. We'll get them operational.
Yeah.
I think.
Okay.
I have nothing else.
All right. We'll move on to number 14, Marshalltown Area Chamber of Commerce. Joe Carter, Director of Marshalltown Area Chamber of Commerce Housing Task Force, will present the housing initiative. Joe, are you with us this morning?
I am with you.
Good morning. Good to see you.
Good morning. Nice to see you as well. Sorry, we're not all in person. If I can, I'm going to try and share my screen. And I believe, can you guys see that now?
Yes.
And is
Very
it,
good.
all right, great. Well, as Mr. Salasik said, my name is Joe Carter. I'm a 25-year resident of Marshalltown, living at 610 Elmwood Drive. I have the honor of leading Marshalltown Company, a 130-year-old world-leading manufacturer of construction tools. Thank you for the opportunity to address the county supervisors this morning. Today, I'm here representing the chamber as its vice chairman. I'm also a member of a local group called Industry Leaders. These industry leaders represent many of the largest employers in the community, and these companies are leaders in their respective industries. The group includes JBS, Emerson, Lennox Raycom, Mechdyne, Stover Controls, and Unity Point Health. So again, thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning. I have a question for the supervisors if they care to answer. Do you have any idea where we rank in population amongst all the cities in the state of Iowa?
Cities or counties, Joe?
Cities.
Yeah, cities.
We should be fairly close to 17.
17 would be a great answer. And let's see if I can get my slide. We are 17th, so you are exactly right. And there are 7 micropolitan communities in the state. Those are listed on the screen. And those are not tied to a metropolitan city like Waukee would be to Des Moines, or Marion would be tied to Cedar Rapids. So there's 7 that fall between 22,000 and 35,000 people. If you look at that list of 7, again, a little quiz for you. Do any of these 7 communities have a greater population today than they did in 1960, 60 years ago? Well, the answer is 2 of them do, Marshalltown and Muscatine. And I think as you look at the rest of that list, boy, some real falling out. I grew up around Mason City, and they've certainly fallen on harder times. We've been fortunate to have a little bit of rise over those 60 years, but basically pretty flat in what we have going on in population. And then, so I want to talk about each one of you two. Mr. Salasik, I think you've lived in Southeast Marshall County for your entire life, perhaps excluding when you were getting your agronomy degree from Iowa State. Mr. Patton, another Iowa Stater?
That's right.
But I believe you've farmed and taught in this area for your entire life, as has your wife. I believe her family may have started the farming around Union, if I remember that right.
Yes.
And I didn't give Mr. Salasik a chance to answer. Was I accurate?
Joe, I didn't receive a degree from Iowa State, but with all the schooling that I took over the last 40 years through Iowa State,
You should have.
I should have. I should have. So that's where I'm at.
There you go. And so I'm sorry to tell you, Mr. Thompson, that the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire is outrepresented by Iowa State here today. I believe you and Kathy moved to Marshalltown in 1986, so you've been a part of this community for 34 years. Is that right? About right?
That would be accurate.
So my reason for addressing that topic is that each of you, maybe slightly less with Mr. Thompson because it's only been 34 years instead of a lifetime, you've seen our city go from perhaps the richest per capita in the state of Iowa to one of the poorest. As Lenox and Emerson moved their operations and headquarters out of town in the 1970s, we lost so many management positions. We've been fortunate to hold our population steady, but as we have studied those other micropolitan communities that were on that list that I showed earlier, we see that they are dying a slow death. All of them would say they have much the same problem, poverty and continued declines in their population. We have a chance and a strategy to put Marshalltown in a better situation and thereby Marshall County. If we want our micropolitan community to not only survive but thrive, we've got to grow the community and do it with higher wage earners. I think it's critical to what we're doing. Since I moved here 25 years ago, I often hear we don't have enough places to eat and there aren't enough things to do. If we want more, we're going to have to do something differently. Otherwise, we're going to continue into this continuous stagnation or worse. And so the first thing is housing. The studies have shown us that we have a major problem. I also have plenty of anecdotes just from my workplace alone that would convey the issues. But short is we need more housing. So a year ago, the chamber made it a goal to reduce the commuter rate by 50% in 5 years. At that time, 21.5% of the workforce drove into town for work and did so from 50 miles or more away. And that 50% equates to roughly 1,700 individual employees. And who do you think is driving into this community from 50 miles or more? I think we'd all agree it's not minimum wage workers. But if we don't have nice homes for these people to buy or nice apartments to rent, we're not going to stop this situation. Our problem is obvious when you consider that for most of this year, we only had 30 or so homes for sale on the open market, single family homes. Yesterday, that number for single family homes on the market was 23. Why are we so short of homes? We've averaged less than 5 new single family homes per year since the mid-1970s. Think about that for a bit. Less than 5 homes being built, single family homes being built since the mid-1970s. So nearly 50 years, 40 some years. Short, we need more housing. Based upon the studies that have been run, we need at least 1,000 new housing units between 2020 and 2024. We probably needed them in 1900 something too, but between 2020 and 2024. And I've got a number up there that you can see down there on the bottom. We've apportioned that out, saying roughly what we think out of those 1,000 new housing units, 600 being rental. That's having some good progress. The chamber likes what we're seeing there, but the single family portion needs some help. So the chamber created a housing committee a little over a year ago, and that committee hired McClure Engineering to understand the challenges and to develop a strategy for increasing our housing options. I believe that Lynn Olberding sent you a copy of McClure's, at least the supervisors sent you a copy of McClure's strategy proposal when you first met Carlos Gier, our new economic development chair. If not, please let me know and we can get you a copy. I'm going to try and explain a little bit about their proposal, or McClure's proposal. They explained to us that there is a housing shortage, not just in Marshalltown, but in the United States, and especially for micropolitan communities, as well as even smaller communities. We need developers and we need builders. They further explained to us that communities like ours are riskier for developers and builders because the profit margins on homes are smaller, and worse yet, there is a smaller demand than big cities offer with their large populations. Finally, as McClure looked at our community, they also realized that we have virtually no shovel-ready lots, and we have no incentives that drive housing growth as other communities see. So they studied communities in the state and reported what worked and what didn't. They also surveyed the local workforce. That ended up being a little over 600 people that they surveyed, as well as talking with bankers. They talked with home builders and land developers. Most of the land developers outside of the community, but some within. So then they told us that we should try to find, or looking at the solution, they told us we should try to find existing developers here and elsewhere who would be willing to take the risk. But because enough developers to solve our housing shortage has been difficult in the past, they suggested that we create our own 501c3 organization to act as a developer as well. We have nearly completed the creation of that Community Development Corporation, or CDC, so that's in the works. If we can't get developers to buy land to initiate a project, we'll need to find donors to fund the purchase of any land to be used by our CDC. We've already started some of those donor conversations, but so far we've also been able to get some developers interested. As we work through this project, as McClure worked through this project and getting us a proposal, obviously it spurred up some conversations with developers as they talked with them. And so we've been fortunate enough to get some developers to say that they're interested. After the purchase of the land, whether it be the developer or it be our CDC, the developer needs to grade the land and put in streets and utilities according to the way the land is platted or designed. That infrastructure work must be funded somehow. Again, McClure explained that we have various options like we do with the land purchase. And so obviously those are listed there on that slide that they talked about and they put in their strategy proposal. But besides incentivizing developers, next McClure proposed that we incentivize builders and home buyers. If our 501c3 is the landowner, we can control the price on the lots. Therefore, we could offer those lots at reduced rates if we feel that's necessary. And we also could offer to hold the cost of the lot until the home is sold, thereby not having the cash outlay for the builder right away. To incentivize buyers and help builders sell the homes more quickly, McClure proposed a cash incentive in lieu of tax abatement of $10,000 per home. This is only for new homes that sell for $180,000 and more. And in talking to virtually all of the, well, I think all of the home builders, most didn't think they would be building homes for less than $225,000. But this is the key to addressing this housing issue. If we can't find a way to make this happen, I'm afraid we'll be wallowing around 10 years from now in the same situation or worse. That's certainly the belief of the chamber. And the buyer incentive is the most important piece right at this moment. So where are we? The chamber board has approved dedicating $250,000, or that's $2,500 per home for 100 homes for a portion of the home buyer incentive that McClure has proposed. The chamber wanted to be a leader in supporting the effort, and we couldn't imagine a better way to be a leader than to put our money where our mouth was. Then the city followed suit. So they've gifted that same amount of money. A private donor has also, after request, has gifted $50,000 towards this incentive. So we just need another $450,000 or $4,500 per home for 100 homes to get us the rest of the way home, as I'd say. Sorry, that was a little bit of a joke. We're working. See, you got to ask for a laugh, and then sometimes you can get one. We're working the circuits trying to get this last $450,000. We have talked with local bankers. We've talked with some local realtors, some other possible private donors, and we've got more to do along those lines. We still need, our next steps after today are to continue to take this proposal to other groups like you to find the funds to make this successful. While we need this home buyer incentive as the start, we also have to be careful to not use up all of our requests with these private donors when we later need money for land or for infrastructure. I hope that you've heard my words today, and as you reflect on them in the near future, pardon me, and you think about the history of Marshalltown, and then what you want for this community and what it means to the rest of the county. Obviously, this isn't just even though this is very much a city initiative to build homes within the city, we think this is going to help also the entire county. I believe it's either further poverty and a stagnant or declining population, or we work together to create a community that's growing and thriving. I believe this push with housing is that start we need, and I hope you're with us and we'll support it. Can we come together and take a chance to do something bigger? I think this is one of the biggest pushes I've ever seen in the 25 years I've lived here. So my big question to you is are you in? I know that I'm in the discussion only items, so I'm hopeful, even though I say I'm hopeful you'll support us. I don't know that how I present this question to you for possible action, but that's what I want to do. And I certainly appreciate your time today. I would gladly take any questions, but would love an answer to the ultimate answer to my question of are you in, but also how do I present this question to you for a possible action?
Joe, can you be a little more clear on what you're actually asking from the county? And also, is this just for Marshalltown, or would it also include, could we include LeGrand or State Center or some of our other smaller communities, or is it just a project that's going to be within the bounds of Marshalltown?
Yep, great questions. Today, it is set up to be a city project. And with the funding as we have it today, I'm trying to get to that slide. Yep. We've got $2,500 from the city. We feel like, Mr. Salasik, that I can't imagine the city of Marshalltown wanting to fund projects in LeGrand or Green Mountain or State Center. So that would probably fall off the plate. So what we've decided to do today as a chamber is to make this a city start. I hope that we could get some traction and potentially do this in the smaller communities. I also don't know from the study that we had done if we have as many issues in the county, the rest of the county outside of Marshalltown. Obviously have smaller populations. Your price of land perhaps goes down, perhaps the cost of infrastructure. You know, we just don't know how those cities are going to respond to that, and we haven't gone to those individual cities to ask them about that. But I think if we had the city of State Center saying, hey, we'd gladly support a $2,500 home buyer incentive for 100 homes as well in our community, or for whatever amount they wanted to do, I think the chamber, although I have not asked that question, we've not brought it up, I would think that we'd be interested in that. But we're starting with a city only because we need to start somewhere. And We think that's the right thing to do. And then I think there was another part to your question, and I think I missed it.
What are you asking from the
Oh.
county
Yeah.
financially?
My ask is that you'd come in and you'd do the same thing that the city and the chamber have done, that you'd support us at the $2,500 per home for 100 homes, or $250,000 over that time period.
Joe, previously when Carlos, the economic developer, and Lynn Oberding came and spoke to the Board of Supervisors and introduced themselves, this came up. And at that time, I believe all three supervisors thought that we should be participating in some fashion. We also think that we should participate in the same percentage of return on investment that each of these entities received. What I mean by that is when you look at the city, they're approximately 39% of the property taxes on a home in the city of Marshalltown. When you look at the percentage of property taxes that are from the school system, it's about 47, 48%. Community college, right around 5%. The city or the county, right around 15.5 to 16%. So I think what I personally, as one of the three votes here, would be willing to do would be to participate this, but to participate in a fashion that would be proportional to our return on investment. I personally would not be willing to go as high as $2,500 for each home from the city, but I would be willing to go in a proportionate amount of that in relationship to the property taxes that that future home would be paying.
We have had some discussions with the Marshalltown Community School District, and so that certainly is in play. I think we have some legality issues that we've got to get around with how that might occur, if it can even occur, and if they'd even support it. But that there's certainly some interest and there's some conversation going on. We don't have those same sort of legalities, from my understanding, that we would with the Iowa Valley or the community college here in town. I can certainly understand your statement. I hope that you're willing to go more than that. That's certainly my hope and my desire, because I think it's such a bigger issue. And I think trying to get that funding in other places is going to be extremely difficult. And I think the city and the chamber have stepped out to make that happen. And I'm hoping that the county sees that as a bigger piece of what we're trying to do overall, that it could really have a dramatic impact. If we don't do something and we don't jump out there and make this happen, what else have we done? What else are we going to do that's really going to move this needle and help us become a wealthier community, a more thriving and growing community? That's the question that I hope you guys ask yourselves.
Is some of the money that goes to the chamber, I think, comes from the county. So is it fair to say that we're maybe helping a little bit through the chamber at this point, or is that not a fair statement?
Yeah, no question. The city and the county both are both big supporters of what we do at both economic development as well as the chamber. And so certainly there is commitment from both of those groups, both governmental agencies that help the chamber as well, and have for a long time. Absolutely.
Steve, both the city and the county contribute $50,000 annually to economic development.
I thought that's what it was.
Yeah, great question.
Well, are we able to make many more commitments on this at this time? I don't believe we can.
Can't.
Is there any other discussion that needs to happen at this time?
I just did the math on it just in case you care, but the
Yes.
numbers that Dave was given for the 15%, 39% would mean that your contribution would be around $1,000 a home, right at it. Anyway, just throwing around what you're saying for
Yeah.
possibles.
Okay. Well, if there's no other questions for Joe, I'd like to thank you for being on with us here this morning and appreciate what you've brought to us here.
Absolutely. Thank you for the time today. Appreciate the comments and the questions, and appreciate what you guys are doing for the county. It's nice to see the great balance sheet that you guys run over there. So appreciate everything you're doing, and we'll be back in touch to see if we can get some support. Thanks very much. And I
Thanks
will
again.
stop sharing my screen.
Okay, we'll move on to number 15 then, the coronavirus policy update. And Nan Benson, you're on.
I'm on. Okay, we have a COVID-19 policy. We put it in effect April 1st. We did an April 14th addendum and an end of May addendum. And I had a meeting on Friday with our HR kind of folks in Iowa. It was cities, counties, a lot of municipalities, but they're kind of talking about how they're adjusting their COVID policy. Currently, we've got, if folks get on an airplane, that they're supposed to quarantine for 2 weeks, and I know that's not happening. It was talked about during that meeting, and a lot of folks have taken that out of their policy because mask wearing is just, if you're within 6 foot of someone, mask wearing, that's what we're all doing. And as long as we continue those practices, not a big deal. Some of them have left out of the country. You know, if you're going out of the country or on a cruise ship, that you quarantine for 2 weeks. They've left that in their policies. So I think we need to update ours. I just kind of need some direction on how you would like it updated. The other thing that I keep hoping that the legislation will come through. Right now, the COVID sick time ends on December 31st. And having this extra 80 hours of COVID sick time hopefully helps people stay home when they're sick. You know, that's really what we're trying to encourage, so they're not spreading it to others. But they're pretty confident it's going to get continued. They don't know if they'll just extend, if you haven't used the 80 hours, that you can continue using it, or if they'll give an additional 80 hours kind of for the new year. So some counties, a lot of counties are continuing that. We don't get any sort of reimbursement for that anyway. We don't get funds for that. It's just a cost of doing business and keeping everyone safe for us. For a for-profit company, they get tax credits. So that's the thing, but it's not real applicable for us because we don't do that.
Which lowers our income anyway.
I was going to say it's just, yeah. So was just kind of wanting to get some direction on what we want to do. I think we probably need to update at least the travel portion at this time. It would make our payroll lives a lot easier if we kind of decided what we wanted to do for next year, whether or not there's legislation, you know, if we want to just do another 80. I know there's people getting tested a second time for COVID that have previously had COVID. So it's, you know, they say that's about a 3 to 4 month safety time, but you know, we've been doing this since March, and if you got it early, you could be getting it again.
So what you're explaining there then, if we would remove the airplane aspect
out of our policy, and
that would help a lot.
It would help a lot. I still think international travel in a cruise ship, that's my personal opinion, just seems like you're really
More risk.
Yeah, it's a lot higher risk.
Yeah.
And you know, with the rates we have in Iowa, I don't think they want us anyway in those other places. But
Well, if you take the airplane travel out, then, that was your basic
That was my,
concern.
that's one of my concerns.
Yeah.
And the other one is whether or not we want to maybe extend another COVID sick leave of an additional 80 hours beginning January 1st. Whether or not there's legislation to require that.
Well, I would be in favor of both of those items. I don't know what the other guys are thinking.
I agree, I would too. Didn't we have something that involved leaving the state? And
We
then having
did,
to-
and that was
is
one
that
of our
gone now?
addendums. That we
Okay,
got-
that was one of the addendums.
We can
Okay.
now drive out of state. That was what we
Okay.
removed. the
So
end
that
of
doesn't need to
May.
be addressed at all at this point. Okay.
No, we got rid of that. Everything at the beginning, we didn't know what we
No,
were dealing with,
course
and we were all locked down quite a bit there when you think about those first few months. I mean, we're still pretty locked down, but we're smarter, I hope.
Well, some of the airplanes are still staying with their middle seat. open.
Middle seat, or you're sitting together, you know, if it's a husband and
It's a
wife,
family
you sit
unit.
together. And my daughter did go to Mexico in August, and she said she felt way safer than she did when they went 2 years ago. No one was seated by him in the plane. On the resort, all the tables were social distance like they are here, and they couldn't leave the resort.
I know Mexico's got really high figures, but maybe that isn't in the resorts.
I'm thinking it's different, yeah. And they weren't allowed to leave the resort. There was no leaving that was one of the rules,
Yeah.
you know? So if we remove the airplane in US and add an additional, do the COVID sick. Dave, what's your thought on this discussion?
I'm fine with what you're doing.
Okay,
I know in the road department, the part of the problem with using more than the 2 weeks is we've had quite a few employees that were doctor ordered to quarantine because of exposure, but then never got the virus. Well, then they could get it in another 2 months. And now they've already used their COVID leave, but we still have to put them on paid administrative leave, but they're just, the potential is there because if there's an exposure, their doc may say quarantine.
mhm.
But they didn't gain anything as far as any antibodies because they never were positive. And now it's hard to get people tested. What I've heard, the employees that think they have exposures, doctors won't even test them unless they have symptoms.
You have to have symptoms to get tested right now unless you drive to a Test Iowa site, which Des Moines, Waterloo, you know, I know there are some facilities, there's a Doctors Now that's got 3 locations in Des Moines that will do testing if you require it. There's a cost. Our insurance will pay that, but there
But
are
we'll
some but it's nothing right here in Marshall County.
We'll be missing the asymptomatic positives.
Right.
We're fairly common.
Mhm. Yeah, so this is at least a step to get some more time and, you know, I thought it was really good discussion. They also had discussion about the upcoming vaccines and things we can require and do. So that was good conversation, but that'll be for another day because it's not here yet. So we don't even have to think about that at this point.
What kind of requirements were they thinking about?
Whether or not we can require an employee to get vaccinated.
Oh.
And it is something we can do, or wear a mask.
That's stepping over the line there, I think, isn't it?
Well, that was our attorney, Ann Schmiesik at Ehlers and Cooney, saying, yes, you can. And if you have, you know, some people are allergic to eggs and you can't get the flu shot, this would be very similar. Medically, you can't get the shot. You know, there's things like that. The other thing, they said you could require them to get the shot or wear a mask 100% of the time. That is something you could require. So they have an option. If they don't want to get the shot, they could do that. And she said that is something they can do. But again, we don't have to worry about that until we, you know, they say that we're supposed to next week begin getting vaccines here in Iowa that'll be started for our healthcare folks.
You and I aren't gonna be.
We're not going to be in line next week, Bill.
Yeah,
And
it's
I'm
healthcare.
I'm really hoping that
Assisted living.
Yes.
yeah, assisted living will be next, but they said really first is healthcare.
I've seen a couple articles on just the transport of this vaccine when they get it around, and what they're saying is it's going to be like a trucking situation that we haven't seen since World War II,
Hmm.
as far as getting things around the country, and there aren't the refrigerated haulers that you need to,
70 below zero is where it has to
it's,
stay.
yeah. And so you can't just put any truck
I think the
you
first
want.
one's not, the first one's not the one where it is.
Yeah, there's two different ones and
But
they
that's
have
Celsius,
different,
isn't it?
yeah.
I think.
So it's a big deal.
Yeah.
But all of us in this room, I'm sorry, we're not going to be getting it for a while. So I don't think we have to cross that bridge yet. And I think we'll be getting a lot more information. This group talked about getting together again in January, just because it was a 2-hour thing and we spent an hour and a half on COVID and I learned a ton.
By then it'll be so cold here, they can haul on a flatbed.
He's so encouraging, isn't he?
Yeah.
Thank you very much for the direction. I can get our policy updated and then bring it to the next meeting to get
Okay.
official approval so it can be in effect.
Sounds good.
And how long are we going to extend it then? Did we decide? Was it 3 months or?
Well, we can, it'd be the current policy. We can give the additional time and it would just change.
Okay.
It would just give us more time beginning
At the end
January
of the
1.
month, it would change.
Well, it would change when we did it on the 22nd.
Okay.
We can make it effective
That's fine.
Okay.
that day and say that beginning January 1 of 2021, there'll be an additional 80 hours of COVID sick time for employees if needed.
That's what I was saying, but.
Yeah.
But I needed to hear the feminine way of thought.
We can put dates. Again, that's numbers, Bill. I'm good with numbers.
We're good.
Okay, thank you very much.
All
That's a
right,
great
thank you.
direction.
Thank you. Number 16, public forum. It's a time set aside for the public to make comments on topics of county business other than those listed on this agenda. No action will be taken on any of these topics brought up in the public forum. And I'm going to excuse myself for another 2 minutes. Okay, I'm sorry.
Oh, come on, this is really good stuff, though.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, we can wait 2 minutes. It won't kill us.
Yes. Good to go.
Okay, public forum. First, we have a mediation update. Craig, our attorney, has gotten back to us. EMC would like to settle by the end of the year. So the two attorneys, their attorney and our attorney, is still working back and forth on wording and adding things, getting it up to date. We had expressed some concerns that we discussed during mediation regarding the statute of limitations on the timeline. So they're working through those pieces between the two attorneys, and the 22nd is too long. So I just wanted to give you all a heads up that we'll probably need to have a special between now and the 22nd to finalize their agreements. They're working on both the code that we had on our mediation meeting and the actual cash value for the building and ground shop. So it'll be both
Oh,
things.
really? I thought that was already settled.
We hadn't got the official document. We had some concerns.
There were some details. We were concerned that they weren't gonna pay us for our contents and the derecho damage that had already been done. So we wanted to make sure all that was still covered.
Yeah, so he added some verbiage to their agreement, and now it's went back to the other attorney. And so we hoped we could have something that we could email you guys today, but they're not done yet. Those two are still going back and forth and tweaking it, and
We should
but
say
we're
by the end of the
close.
week, pretty, I mean, really Thursday, Friday at the latest.
So
Do we need to set a time?
I don't think we do now
can't
until
do
we
that
get
right
it,
now.
no. But I just wanted to alert you that that is really progressing, and they want to write us checks yet this year.
And that's a good thing.
That's a good thing.
Yes.
If the check is big enough.
Yeah, when you started out, I thought, gee, they were gonna increase it, but no.
Because we're nice people, Bill.
Right.
Yeah. We're not that nice.
Speak for yourself.
Okay.
All right. Is there anything else under the public forum that needs to be brought up?
I think so.
I'm seeing some lights on in the courthouse, even on the weekend. Is that
Yeah,
positive thing, or-
we have started some protection mostly for demo on the interior of the courthouse. They've done some light demo. They're starting to take some handrails and things off, but mostly we're just working on protecting flooring and current woodworking and some of the critical historic stuff that's around the building. So we should have a meeting. We're having a meeting tomorrow with the electrical and HVAC contractor, who is actually the same contractor, which will be a lot smoother for the project, about some sequencing and who we need to get in early to start working on things. So the interior of the courthouse is definitely moving along.
Yes, good. Good news. All right. Anything else?
We had to actually shut the door because it was too loud.
I'm glad. I'm just fine with that.
I was very happy to shut the door on the third floor
Absolutely.
because it was too noisy due to construction.
All right. If there's nothing else under public forum, then we'll go to adjournment. The next regular session is December 22nd, 2020 at 9:05 a.m. All business to be acted upon at that session should be submitted to the county auditor's and recorder's office or the board of supervisors office by Thursday, December 17th, 2020 at 1:00 p.m. There being no further business to come before the board, the meeting is adjourned.